Good morning from London Waterloo. It's just gone 7 AM and I am about to go on a journey to somewhere that some certain transport creators have never been. It is the only national rail line not to be connected to any other national rail line, and so you might call it an island line. Now, I have wanted to go to the Isle of Wight for a fair while. Why not make use of this fine February morning and let's get down there? Basically what we'll do is we'll go up and down the island line and explore, well, effectively the east coast of the Isle of Wight. I'm wearing my YouTube jumper this morning, which I actually bought from a charity shop before I even started doing Vaguely Mundane, which you could call manifesting, or you could call false valour, but for YouTubers. Oh, and of course I'm wearing the Barman Maquette jacket. There's nobody else on this coach. Lap of luxury, this. Coach 2, if you're on the 7:30 to Portsmouth Harbour, that's the one to go for. Oh, where are we now? I haven't a clue. Before we get to the Isle of Wight, we first have to get to the second most heavily populated British island, second only to Great Britain, and that is Portsea Island, where I am now. Why is it the second most populated? Well, basically because it just sort of is the city of Portsmouth. I'll be honest though, as islands go, its separation from the mainland is sort of a bit naff. It's just a little creek. I've never been to Portsmouth, and today I'm not going to have much of a chance to look around either. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I will come back. Yes, one day we shall return. Oh, and I mean that in a sense of, obviously I've got to come back later today, otherwise I'm marooned on the Isle of Wight, but I will be back for good. Not for good, I'll just be back one day. Look, it's not that difficult. Right, this is actually the bit of the trip that I was most excited for. Taking the catamaran across the Solent to the Isle of Wight. Basically the only way of getting between the Isle of Wight and the mainland is by sea. I guess helicopters probably can do it, but I haven't got that budget. You just go downstairs at the station and then you end up in the kind of boarding area for this ferry. It's 22 minutes, I believe, over to Ryde Pier Head. Unfortunately, it is a grim day, a bit soggy, so there's not going to be any sun deck because there's no sun. I mean, I've been on ferries on the Thames, I've been on like big vehicle ferries across the Irish Sea. I've not been on like a small craft like this. That's going over, I guess, the sea. The Solent's the sea. There's definitely more sway than I was naively expecting. Here we are at Ryde Pier, where there's a very interesting thing waiting for me. Although, am I going to be waiting for it? Yes. There's bad news. This is an actual national rail station in the middle of the sea. I think it's probably the only one. I'm here. Unfortunately, the trains aren't going to be here for some time because the next 3 at least are cancelled. There's not going to be any trains until at least noon. We're going to have to rip up the plans about getting on the island line, and we're going to have to ad-lib some other thing to do. That's why this is an improv format and not a scripted format where I go through things very methodically. Let's go and have a look at the platform, shall we? Okay, let's talk about this station for a moment. So we've got some track here that is not in use. You just can't use it. It's shut off. On this side, that's where you'd actually board the train if it were here. It's only a short distance to go down to Ryde Esplanade, to the actual town. We're going to just hope that at some point I can get on the island line. In the meantime, what could I do? Maybe I'll go to a castle. It's actually great, this. It's actually great because you expected to see trains, but what you're actually getting is a much more enriching experience of perseverance and possibly futility. Right, there's no point being down on ourselves. It's time to make the most of what we have. And what we have is a big, chunky little bus timetable for the whole island. Oh, and I'm getting some watery eyes, and I think what I'll aim for is getting a bus to Newport, which is essentially the county town, and then hopefully by mid-afternoon some trains are running and we can go and get on one of them. Yeah, I could have come down here on a hovercraft, but then I wouldn't have had the chance to get a train along a pier. I mean, I didn't get the chance in reality, but Isle of Wight! Though I actually prefer green. Not too fond on orange. Ryde Pier behind me, which is actually 3 piers, all in a row. My understanding is that the pier was put in place for similar reasons to why Southend Pier was put in place, which is it's kind of tough for boats to get like right up against the shore. There used to be a tramway along the pier, which got removed in the 60s. The rail line remains. So there's a tunnel behind me just down there, a little way on from Ryde Esplanade Station, which is a key reason for why the Island Line uses the trains it uses. I haven't seen one yet, so I will come back to this later when we get on one. Consider this an act of foreshadowing. Here we go then, on the third mode of transport of the day, a bus. There you go, there's the secret of the transport network of the Isle of Wight. It is mostly bus. I did have a little walk through Ryde. A lot of the buildings had that sort of weathered look that a lot of seaside towns have, but I didn't stick around too long because I want to get onto Newport, which I wasn't even planning to do today, so this is a win of sorts. Welcome to Newport, the county town and approximate centre of the Isle of Wight, and based on my experience of the last 15 minutes or so, a place with quite bad traffic coming into the town centre. Entirely unrelated, the Isle of Wight used to have a much more comprehensive rail network, with lines going between all the major towns to all the ports that could get you to the mainland, but not anymore. This is Newport railway station, or what is left of it. What is left of it is nothing. It's quite depressing really. It's a big bypass, I guess, and a little roundabout, and there's a little... There is a little blue plaque on the wall behind me here to say that yes, there was a rail station here. You can basically just get all over the island from here. This was the kind of hub, and it's gone now. Each of the lines was built by different companies, it's pretty standard fare, but then they kind of got shut down post-nationalisation in the 50s and 60s. Not all of it was by beaching, but some of it was by beaching. You'll be glad to know that there is still a Newport rail station, it's just in South Wales. There is also a little railway tavern here, just to prove that it was here. There's just a little bit of a hill to climb up here, but I'm incredibly nonchalant about it. We love pre-standardisation road signs. Look at this one. Stripy poles and everything. Very nice. So as fate would have it, I am currently reading this book that I picked up in Ely called Republic by Alice Hunt, and it's all about the decade in the 17th century when England had no monarch. Preceding that time, Charles I was the monarch who got executed, and before he was executed, before he was put on trial, he was held a prisoner of sorts here at Carisbrooke Castle in Newport on the Isle of Wight. I was literally reading this on the train down, and now we're going to go and take a look in Carisbrooke Castle to see where Charles I was imprisoned. So, to cut a very long story short, King Charles I lost the Civil War, got imprisoned at Hampton Court, escaped there, came to the Isle of Wight, just roamed around the Isle of Wight doing what he wanted. He ends up trying to escape the Isle of Wight, gets captured, put in here. Basically, he's given the castle as his prison, where his jailers included a Dalek and the world's most terrifying doll. But he was given this big bowling green, which is nice if you're a prisoner. Equally, he did end up getting beheaded, so you win some, you lose some. So whilst he was imprisoned here, Charles I slept in this bedroom, and he tried to escape from this bedroom, but failed and was moved to a more secure location that he could not escape from. But he tried to escape that one as well. Obviously, it didn't work out in the end. But yeah, it's weird that I'm here considering I'm only here because a train's not working. Serendipity. One thing I will say about the Isle of Wight, which is going to sound very stupid, and in fact, I think I'm very stupid for prompting to say this. It doesn't really feel like an island. I mean, you could argue that Great Britain doesn't feel like an island. I think my kind of idea of what an island is or should be, all of this sea crashing against the rocks, heather and gorse and all of that stuff, whereas this is just like, it's just a bit of England that happened to be chopped off. I've looked online and it seems that trains are now running. Every other train is running, so there's quite a bit of waiting around, so I'm going to have to time it quite nicely. I think we're going to head to Shanklin. That's the end of the line as it is today, which is a good place to start as any. Maybe it's just the particular roads I'm walking on, but there's a surprisingly high number of streets around here that just don't have pavements, or like not proper pavements, or pavements on just one side of the road. It's quite strange and scary. Right, only about 4 hours after intended, I'm here in Shanklin. Behind me is where the line to Ventnor would once have run. That was ripped up in the 60s, and whilst there have been a fair few proposals to re-extend the line that way, obviously it's come to nothing. So now it's just a kind of footpath cycle trail called the Red Squirrel Trail. And to be fair, if there's anything to know the Isle of Wight for, it's that they have red squirrels, because the grey squirrels couldn't get here because they're not that good at swimming or boatcraft. I've not seen one, but I've also not been looking out for one, because whilst I said if there's one thing to remember about the Isle of Wight, I did forget. So here we are, Shanklin Station. Okay, so here we are on the Island Line, And the trains they use here are recycled London Underground trains, specifically the D78 stock if you're pernickety, that was used on the District line up until I think it was 2016. I'm going 2 stops. We're going through Lake and then to Sandown. And then I'm going to have an explore and then we're going to get on the train again later. We just went through Lake Station, very, very simple affair, just a platform and a ramp down to the street. And there is no lake around here unless you count the sea, which would make you wrong, but it's because it comes from an Old English word to mean a stream. And now I'm at Sandown, which is only a short distance away. I am going to take a long walk to a short pier, and it's very important to specify that's to and not off. There we go, this is what you want when you're at the Isle of Wight, when you've got a beach. You got big waves, you got some nice cliffs in the distance. That's what you're here for. Doesn't matter that it's February the 7th, 6th. Doesn't matter. I need some help deciphering this pier sign. A whole day's fun in one. In one what? In one day? A whole day's fun in one day? Isn't that the normal exchange rate for days to fun? I don't get it. In one place? The sentence stops. It doesn't make sense. I actually don't want to go on the pier. I'm already having a whole day's fun in one day. I was going to get an Island Line Day Ranger for £7 and just go up and down the line and check out the stations in a bit more detail, but there was not really any point when you've got the disruption that we've had today, so it's just a couple of trips today. And it's probably time to go back to the station to get the second one of those. Okay, finally, and after much of my own prevarication, let's ride the rest of the Island Line to the end. I'm particularly looking forward to heading through Smallbrook Junction, which you can't get in or out of. There's no entrance or exit. You can only transfer to the Heritage Line, which isn't open at this time of year. Because it's not open at this time of year, this train will not stop there. It's essentially a closed station for some of the year. I did think earlier, until I'd looked it up, I was like, oh, maybe I could stop off there. You can't get out there because there's no way back. So we've just come through Ryde St John's Road, and that means shortly we're going to be riding through the Ryde Tunnel, which is not long. I imagine it's going to be like 15 seconds through it or something like that. But that little tunnel, it's the reason that these tube trains have to be used here, because it's too short. You need something that's used to going through small tunnels. Why is it so short? Well, it kept flooding. They had to pile it up a bit at the bottom. Here we go, here's the tunnel. 1, 2, I don't need to count. This is the one bit of tube on the Isle of Wight. Okay, speed this up. Flashbacks to my Waterloo and City video. Okay, so that was 40 seconds, which is still pretty short because we were going quite slowly. And we're back at Ryde Pier Head. It is so much nicer here than it was this morning. It does help that the sun's come out. It's just a nice peaceful day by the seaside, or in the sea. I am going to have a little jaunt back to shore before getting the ferry back to the other shore. Am I sure? The waves just lapping up underneath the rails is kind of spooky. In fact, it's like not far from my feet either, but that's what you get for being on a pier. I'm very glad though that the Island Line A is still here. I'm not sure how it makes sense really in terms of a profitable operation. Do people do an actual kind of commute from Shanklin to Pier Head over to Portsmouth? Maybe. But I'm glad it's still here, and I'm glad that it's working now so that I could get a nice shot of a mainline train going along a big nice pier. That's what we came here for. Sorry, no, I'm going back to the scaffolding that's underneath the rails. Why is there scaffolding there? Who's getting on the scaffolding? Presumably you can only get on the scaffolding during low tide, but I don't know if it gets low out this far out. I don't know. Top marks to whoever's done this. That's very me. It wasn't me. Now I can actually see across the Solent. It's not actually that far, is it? Although it is about a 10-minute walk from here to the end of the pier, and I do need to go and get my boat. I feel like the day has been redeemed. It's easy to say, oh, this is the strangest station in the country, but how do you measure that? There's no way to have any conviction about it. But what you can say is that lots of different ones are weird and interesting in their own way, and Ryde Pier Head just over here, I'd say that's one of the contenders. Well, no, it's the contender for station with the most interesting relationship to water. How about that? This waiting room for the ferry back across in Ryde is actually low-key kind of nice. It's got this sort of churchy feel, except a churchy feel described by somebody who's never seen a church before.
That was a fun day out.
Thank goodness for all the engineering problems that meant that the Isle line was not running as it should have been. It's actually quite fun to think on the fly and just sort of roam and wander. I like to mix up the more scripted stuff, but I also like to bring in these kind of just exploring videos where I have no script, no real plan. We just go out and see what the world offers us. So if you like more of this or more of that, make sure you like this video, subscribe to see more. Okay, bon voyage!